Sorry, geez. Good morning, good morning, Emily and Rebecca and Nuvik. I'm getting used to a squeaky new chair, apparently.
Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
Do we want to check now and confirm that you both can share screen without an issue? I can stop sharing for a minute if that would be better now than mid-meeting.
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay. Maybe. Stop sharing. Although, can you even tell that I'm trying to share my screen? Is that showing up on your end?
Yeah, I can see welcome joint meeting of Vermont's Environmental Justice Advisory Council. Yep.
Okay. It's doing something weird where it like stop sharing is not the default. It's like just the share button. Which is weird. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead if you want to give it a go.
All right. Oops. It was presenting it for a second. Nope, that's not what I want. Presenting. Let me know when you can see that. If you can.
That looks good, Emily.
Okay.
Yeah. Success. Great. Thank you.
Cool. No problem. And if I move through, you can see those. You don't see the notes, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay, great. Cool.
Okay.
Stop
Rock
sharing.
on. All right, pull this back up.
Phoebes, quick question. The library where all of our documents are posted, what is that, the name of that?
Yeah, so it's the Environmental Justice Learning Library or Online Learning Library, and I will. It's posted in two locations in that library. Underneath the folder I just dropped in the chat, which is the link to the folder for the documents related to this meeting. But I also posted it in a folder underneath EJFP definition that's content specific. So it lives in both places if somebody were to navigate the library.
Okay, cool. I just was gonna, in my, opening slide, mention that the fact sheet and visual aids are available there. So I just wanted to make sure I said the right thing.
Great. Thank you. Morning, folks. See, folks are trickling in. I have notoriously challenged internet out here in Groton, so I'm gonna be off screen, especially when I'm screen sharing, just because you probably can't really see my face anyway. This is Phoebes Potter. Good to be with y'all. Yeah. We'll start right at 10 with some intros. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's 10 a.m. Eastern Time. This is the joint meeting of Vermont's Environmental Justice Advisory Council and Interagency Committee. My name is Phoebes Potter, they, them, or he, him pronouns, and I will be facilitating this meeting today as the Environmental Justice Coordinator, supporting these two groups. And yeah, we have lots that we're trying to accomplish in the next 2.5 hours. So I'm gonna encourage us to kick off intros even as folks continue to trickle off, just so we can honor time together. I am, for a few reasons, going to be off video today. And I'm going to drop my screen share when we do intros so that for folks who are on screen, it's easy to see each other's faces. And I appreciate folks who are on screen. Thank you. So yeah, so good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and just drop the names of our interagency committee and advisory council members here into the chat. And let's just go ahead and go through and see who's here. And I just want to invite, when we introduce ourselves on the committee, to just share name, any identifiers like pronouns that feel important for you to share. And I want to invite each of us, this is something we did to close the last advisory council meeting, and I think it'd be a nice way to open this meeting, is to just name one part of the natural environment or the natural ecosystem that we are a part of that we want to express some gratitude to this morning as we drop into our meeting. So with that, let's see if anyone from housing and community development is here.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, I'm Grace Vinson. I'm the environmental officer for ACCD and DHCD. Pronouns are she, her. Something I'm expressing great gratitude for is the sun, which I can see this morning, which we can't always see in Vermont, as you know. So that's what I'm going with.
And I'm Gretel St. Lawrence. I'm also here from DHCD, and I'm the environmental specialist, and I work closely with Grace, and I think I will second her on gratitude for the sun this morning.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you both. We can keep going down just to the order. It's okay if you want to just jump in. I think Abby, if you're here next for agriculture. Not yet, we'll hop on down to health, and Amy, if you're here, we'll circle back.
Sure. Good morning. Yes, Amy. He, she, her pronouns, and from the Department of Health, Health Equity Lead in Environmental Health. And I am feeling gratitude toward the leaves in Huntington. There are some that are really quite beautiful and bright red. So feeling gratitude for the leaves. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie, designee from emergency management.
Morning, everyone. Stephanie Smith, she, her pronouns, with Vermont Emergency Management. I'm the State Hazard Mitigation Officer, and I'm grateful for a very quiet weekend that I had, because we've been doing way too many things, and we got to have a nice, quiet, relaxing weekend. So it feels like a much better way to start moving into the week.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. I just put in the chat, members of the public, please feel free to, just if you want to, in the chat, add your name, any identifiers or affiliations in your response to the chat. That's welcome. Claire, you here, public service?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Claire McElveny. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Data and Equity Policy Manager at the Department of Public Service. One thing I've been feeling grateful for is the shift in the air that happens as the summer fades to fall, the like crispness and especially the cool mornings I've really been appreciating. So yeah, that's what I've been grateful for recently.
Thank you. Susanna?
Hi, everybody. Buenos
Office of Racial
dias.
Equity.
Hey, I'm Susanna Davis. I'm here as a member both of the Interagency Committee and also the Advisory Council. from the Office of Racial Equity, she series pronouns, and I am gonna say that I'm grateful for herbs, specifically the staying power, the lasting power. I'm gonna tell you why, because I have a favorite tea shop from New York. And I recently went back to my apartment in New York, and I didn't realize I still had some of this particular tea blend left, but I did. I had more left. And it's so little, it's very precious. I don't have much. But I brought it back and I steeped it on Friday and this morning. And it's like, it's changed my whole, I haven't tasted this in 4 years. And it's so, I'm just happy that stuff lasts when you dry it. So I don't know what part of nature that is, but that's what I'm grateful for. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Susanna. Sabina, are you here? And Jenny too, if you're here as well with the Natural Resources Board.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Sabina Haskell, she, her at the Natural Resources Board. I'm echoing a lot of things that people have already said, but I'm always, every single solitary day, grateful for Lake Champlain. I live in Burlington and I love walking on the bike path and seeing it.
I'm Jenny Ronis. I'm Associate General Counsel at Natural Resources Board along with Sabina. She, her pronouns. And then the thing that I'm specifically grateful every morning is the fog that comes up off the Winooski River and watching it burn off throughout the morning. That's what I'm feeling today. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Utility Commission, Elizabeth, if you're with us.
Yep. Good morning. Hi, Elizabeth Schilling. She, her pronouns. I'm the Deputy General Counsel and a hearing officer with the Vermont Public Utility Commission. And I'm going to echo, I think, a comment that was said earlier. I'm feeling really appreciative of the fall foliage that I can see out my window this morning. I'm ready for the leaves to change.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Carla, Agency of Natural Resources.
Good morning, Carla, she, her, Agency of Natural Resources. And I am very grateful for the changing of the colors of the leaves. It's a reminder to me of how alive nature is. And it really underscores the responsibility that I feel to take good care of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Nuvik with Agency of Education.
Hi, I'm Nuri Kalma, the State Coordinator for the AOE. I am really grateful this morning for the beautiful weather around me. I am the kind of person who doesn't like heat a lot, and I'm feeling just great this morning because of the weather that I have around me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nuvik. And Agency of Transportation, Michelle or Dave.
Hi, Dave Pelletier. I use he, him pronouns, and I am grateful for the cool air that comes in this time of the year and just the change of season in general. Not that I wouldn't have appreciated a more summer-like summer, but I do like the changing of all the seasons. So, and I just would like to take a moment to introduce Isaac Kaplan, who is a colleague of mine. He's a coworker that just started at the agency, and he's going to be involved in our equity framework, our transportation equity framework work, among other projects. So I just would say shout out to Isaac. I don't see your face, but anyway, good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for that intro, Dave. I'm Isaac Kaplan. I use he, him pronouns and work with Dave at the Agency of Transportation in the Systems Planning Division. And yeah, like everyone, thankful for the fall weather starting to turn.
Great. Nice to meet you, Isaac. Thanks for joining us. And then Abby, Agency of, or Secretary, Agriculture. Hi, Abby.
Good morning, Phoebes. Hi, everyone. Abby Willard, Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. I'm the Development Division Director. I use she, her pronouns on the Interagency Committee. let's see, grateful for searching through all the weeds in my vegetable garden and actually finding some produce in there, and able to make some pretty nice soups the last week. So that's my gratefulness for the moment.
Great, thank you. So that's our interagency committee members. Welcome. And now I'd love to introduce our Environmental Justice Advisory Council. And I'll just run through the list again. And we can always circle back. Zariah, are you able to be with us? Municipal Government Rep? Okay. Good to just recognize and honor who can't be here. We've been having a challenging time finding dates that work for everybody. So grateful for those who are here, and just want us to all be aware of and acknowledge who's not in the room as we're talking and connecting, and just honoring their presence in the bigger picture work that we're all doing together. So Brittany, are you here with us today?
I am. I'm Brittany Watson, she, her pronouns. And are we saying what we're grateful for?
Yeah,
if so,
yes, please.
I'm feeling grateful just for health and life, just to be another day. Great, thanks.
Thanks, Brittany. Gail?
Hi, I'm Gail Pezzo. I live in Colchester and Westbury Homeowners Association. I'm the president of the board. I'd also like to say that I'm grateful for the ocean. I'm from Long Island, and I was cleaning out my phone today, and I came across a video with the waves and the beach, which I miss very much, although I love the mountains. The other thing I'm grateful for is technology, because this is the first time that I actually have been able to attend one of these meetings, and I have no issues on my side. So I feel like a real newbie, because anytime I've come on, but we figured it out. I'm grateful for IT, the government IT, for the committee, because they figured out what my problem was. I didn't have Microsoft or Word. So there was no way that I was going to be able to enter Teams and not see you guys distorted and sound like you were from outer space. So that's it. Thanks.
That's so excellent to hear, Gail. I'm so glad. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been a process to get here. So, all right. Reverend Brownridge, are you able to join us? Okay. Mariana?
Yes, hello everyone. Hope you're doing great. My name is Mariana Sears. I am the Food Security Representative of the Advisory Council, and I work for Hunger Free Vermont. And I am very grateful. I use she, her pronouns, and I am very grateful for the stability that the fall brings in a family of many kids. Even though with the soccer and volleyball and all these things all combined, I haven't felt that stability this particular year, but I know it's coming at some point. It's going to feel like there's a routine, and I'm so happy for the routine. That's it for me today.
Thanks, Mariana. Welcome. Miriam, are you with us today? Okay, I know Miriam's been traveling. Kaya, are you able to join us today? Okay. Rich, Horseshoe. Okay, and I know Trey wasn't able to join us as well. He had let me know in advance. Jennifer, are you with us? Okay. And then Susanna, are you here with both hats, or is there someone else with the Office of Racial Equity here today?
No, I am wearing both hats.
Okay. So I just want to acknowledge that I think we have, is it true that we have advisory council members who are able to be present, and we're down 5, which means we're not at quorum for advisory council members today. Someone can help me just check in about that.
That's correct, Phoebes.
Okay. Okay. So there wasn't any major consensus points we were seeking to come to today. And we were talking about potentially later in the meeting moving forward to a new stage with the core engagement principle. So I just want to honor that it's, we don't have the necessary participants from the advisory council to be consenting to things as that body. So we'll just modify our agenda as we need unless other folks join us later in the meeting. But let's move ahead with what we have planned. The first half of our meeting had no kind of consensus points involved. It's really more of an educational touch point. We're going to be having a presentation, but I just wanted to do some quick housekeeping stuff early on. Just this meeting is being recorded, public meeting. This information will be posted online, and we will be taking a break around 11:30. Public comment opportunities will be at 10:35 and 12:15. So whatever's going on, we'll make sure we pause right at that time for folks from the public who are seeking to speak today. We will be dropping, and Carla's going to help me out with this, any documents in the chat as we refer to them through the meeting today. And yeah, so I'd love us to just get through the approval of the minutes from last meeting and our agenda and our community agreements, and then we can drop into kind of a quick update from me on just what's been going on since our last joint meeting in July. Is that right? Yeah, and then we're going to have public comment and then an opportunity for for a presentation. So if we can start with the minutes approval, y'all were sent those in advance. And actually, you know what? Let's just skip that because we don't have the advisory council to do a full, so it would only be a partial. So I think we can hold that if that feels all right. Let's just go ahead and agree for the folks who are here to our agenda for today. But I do want to know if there was anybody who had any edits to the minutes at this point. I can at least take stock of that. Are there any concerns folks had? Okay, great. So hopefully it'll be a simple exercise to approve those down the road. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again so we can take a look at today's agenda. And we'll also drop that in the chat for folks to look at. Second. All right. Great, Gail, I'm just seeing your question in the chat. What is the procedure if there was to be a consensus needed and not having the EJ quorum? I don't think, to be perfectly honest, I invite other people to weigh in on this. I don't feel like I have the answer. My instinct is that we must wait until we have quorum of the body that is meant to consent to the decision, which means we may not accomplish it today. But if anyone wants to add any other context or thoughts to that, I welcome it.
Steve, this is Rachel. I think that sounds right, just as an initial reaction.
Thanks, Rachel. And for folks who don't know, Rachel Stevens is legal counsel with Agency of Natural Resources. And so the Agency of Natural Resources is called to provide technical, legal, and administrative support to the Advisory Council and Interagency Committee. So she's here in that capacity and often advising when I'm not quite sure if I'm saying the right thing. So I appreciate you, Rachel. Any concerns with the agenda? Yeah, thank you, Gail, for asking to clarify. Any concerns at this point with the agenda as proposed? And I guess the modification would be potentially just gathering. The modification would be at 11:35 if we still have not reached quorum for advisory council, that we would not move to a consensus phase, but rather just gather any final feedback at this stage. All right. Hearing no concerns, if we can just get some head nods or thumbs up reactions that we feel good about moving forward with the agenda as is. Right. Great. Yes. Okay, wonderful. Great. So with that said, I just want to then ground us into our community agreements. And I was hoping maybe I could get 5 volunteers who would be willing to read one of each of these from the group. Yeah, Dave.
Would you like me to start it off?
That would be awesome.
Will do. Number 1, be present with yourself and one another. Be present with your body and feelings. If you need to take a break or take care of yourself, please do. Be present for one another and listening deeply. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I see Jenny's hand.
Number 2, calling in and calling out. Assume best intent, but attend to impact. We can stop things that are being said that are hurtful and be curious and create a space for learning. Tools include using oops or ouch to indicate that a pause is needed.
Awesome, thank you. Elizabeth?
Let's see. Expect and accept non-closure. We are unlikely to leave here feeling 100% ready to go or to have everything on our agenda wrapped up, especially if we are committed to moving at the speed of trust.
You, Amy?
Number 4, center respect, be respectful, intentional, and work to build trust and create a safe and inviting space.
Thank you. One more brave volunteer. Or repeat is great too. Okay, I'll hold it. Share verbal and other space mindfully. Consider the balance of taking and making space. Move up or move back. Tools to do this include the acronym WAIT, why am I talking? And vocalizing support for another person's comment without repeating the same points that have already been made. Okay, thank you all. Great. Oh, I see some hands. Does anyone want to just reflect anything around our community
I just
agreements
can't
before we
unraise my hand.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'll figure it out.
I think it's the same button as you press to raise it, but I'm terrible at tech, though. Okay, great. So, all right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our first kind of major agenda item, which really is providing an update for all of you, just kind of on where have we been since we were last jointly convened in July 18th in person. There's been, yeah, so much has happened in that time. The first thing I just want to acknowledge, because I just feel it so heavily, is that Alex Lintner, my co-environmental justice coordinator, is not present with us, and I'll speak to that a little bit in the update. And I just want to honor that she's been a tremendous partner in this work and approached it with so much care and tending. She, needed to step away from this position really to care for family and things going on, not for any lack of real love and enjoyment of meeting and working with all of you. She spoke fondly of that, and I know it was hard for her to step down from this position. So I just want to put in the room that that's just a big update that I know is heavy on my heart because she's been a really incredible teammate through all of this. But we are going to be looking to hire another environmental justice coordinator. So for now, you're down to me, for better or worse. I would say worse probably, but I'm doing my best. And I'm also actually working in a part-time capacity. So there's been some impacts just capacity-wise. I just want to put that in the room. And we've done things. We've had 2 meetings since July. We've had our interagency committee come together on August 11th, and then the advisory council on August 21st as 2 separate meetings. And that was really largely focused on the core engagement principles, but also just more conversation about how these entities want to work together, and some other sort of conversations around, other work that we want to do over the long haul around environmental justice. We were hoping that by August 28th, we might come together together and consent to the core engagement principles. That was canceled because of a number of personal issues and illness that had come up on our end, on our team's end. So I really appreciate folks' patience with that. And so here we are sort of regrouping. That said, we've been working really, really diligently and using this time to continue to get feedback and incorporate feedback on the core engagement principles. Just want to point out that there's kind of two major deliverables in the law kind of outstanding for 2023 that are specific to the advisory council and the interagency committee in terms of they are yours to sort of lead the creation of. So that is the core principles of community engagement and the request by the legislature that we review or that you all review and consider any updates to the definition of environmental justice focused population by December 1st of this year. And so, so just grounding us back into those two kind of action items that are on our list. And we're going to talk more about the EJ focused population definition in today's meeting. We have staff from the Agency of Natural Resources with us. And after I give this update, they're going to be giving a presentation to kind of help us just wrap our minds around what we're even talking about when we say we're going to review this definition. So kind of giving us a baseline understanding of what the definition is currently and how to think about it so that we might consider whether we want to see any changes. Other things that have been going on, Alex and I have both been trying to support the advisory council with meaningful engagement of environmental justice focused populations and thinking about how to consult with state agencies. I just made a link in this PowerPoint to the meeting minutes from the last advisory council meeting. It's kind of a useful place starting on page 8 to see some ideas that were generated from that meeting, and we're kind of at the pace of capacity allowing, trying to move those action items forward. We are also working with interagency committee members on thinking about kind of leading or coordinating the implementation of covered agency deliverables in your agencies, linked to the guidebook again to kind of wrap, if folks are curious what that work kind of entails. So there's been different things happening, working with Gail, for example, on and Alex is really leading this, putting together a survey to send out to other mobile home communities to gather some of their ideas about environmental justice needs. Amy and I had the opportunity to present about the environmental justice law to the Vermont Asthma Advisory Panel and a lot of Department of Health staff. Also, Abby and I had a chance to speak with leadership at the Department of Agriculture. So there's these little things kind of happening behind the scenes between our meetings. So I just want to acknowledge that and appreciate all of your sort of energy to move those things forward. The other bucket of work that I just wanted to update folks on is what I kind of refer to as the ANR specific deliverables. So these are things that the law specifically names the Agency of Natural Resources as responsible for implementing. But they are also outside of they're not considered things that all the covered agencies are responsible for. So there's, when I refer to responsibilities of covered agencies, those are things that all 10 state covered agencies are responsible for implementing. These deliverables that are ANR specific are things that we're doing that will influence what other covered agencies do down the road. And there's a number of deliverables, but the one, again, just focused for this meeting in the short term that is really kind of a big focus for us is putting together the guidance for agency environmental benefit spending reports. So guidance was originally due November of this year. And we're trying to stay on track to complete it this year. And then the covered agencies are then going to use that guidance to put together spending reports early next year in 2024. In April was the original deadline for that. So just in terms of what's been going on, we created a task group that includes some staff with subject matter expertise within the Agency of Natural Resources, but we've also invited folks both from the Advisory Council and Interagency Committee to participate or send delegates to that task group. And so that is an open invitation and continues to be for folks who really want to kind of get into the weeds of putting this guidance together. And I just want to recognize that both Zariah Hightower and Jennifer Byrne from the Advisory Council have shown up and been supporting that task group. Really appreciate their contributions. So that task group has just been meeting the last few weeks and putting together sort of a set of guiding questions of what are the key things we need to answer in this guidance, like what are the kind of scoping out what we think needs to be in the guidance. And then that document will be shared with all of you once we feel good about it. So you all being Advisory Council, Interagency Committee, and members of the public can all transparently understand the scope of what that task group is working on. Our intention is to come report to you on our progress during the October 23rd joint meeting that we have on the calendar at the moment. The law requires that this guidance go through a 40-day public comment period. So it's built right into the law that we'll have to do some really thoughtful public engagement and get public feedback on this document. And we also talked as a task group that it might be really helpful, since a lot of this is sort of a technical exercise of data collection, that we might be useful to collaborate with interagency committee members to maybe pilot the guidance while it's in draft form with some different programs from different covered agencies, just to be able to ask questions like, does this form really align with how you collect data? Or can we answer the question we're trying to answer with the way we've set this up for you, right? And we're thinking that would hopefully save a lot of suffering on the back end if we do some of that work up front as we put the guidance together. So yeah, so that is the other major area of work that we've been kind of focused on. So with all of that said, as I mentioned, we really are trying to sustain what's in motion and rebuild capacity now that Alex has moved on from this position. And I, for similar reasons, am currently working at part-time capacity, about 24 hours a week. So we have already reposted the job for EJ coordinator. So please, the link's in the PowerPoint. We can drop it in the chat as well. Share that with your networks. I'd be happy to, yeah, so, Carla Raimundi is the person who supervises our team. And yeah, this job posting is up. Let us know if you have any questions about it, please. We've also, and I just want to acknowledge, really sort of recruited and asked for some backup support from other staff at the Agency of Natural Resources. So I just want to recognize folks like Megan Cousineau and Emily Rogers, who have been really supportive from the Department of Environmental Conservation with these meetings and just some background support. Their colleague Bridget Phillips as well, who's just started. And then there's other staff, as I mentioned, from the Agency of Natural Resources, like Rachel Stevens, our legal support, the folks who are stepping up onto this task group, and then who you're very soon going to meet and have the chance to connect with, Rebecca Williams, Emily Gay, and I want to recognize Jamie Bates, staff from the Department of Environmental Conservation, who have been supporting the work as well. So it's not just the EJ coordinators. We got a lot of help behind the scenes that I want to acknowledge. And we are still considering, where are the areas where maybe some contractor support would help this whole project in kind of specific areas, maybe get some additional support to supplement what we as EJ coordinators can provide. So, okay, so with that, let's see. Oh, right. The last piece I just wanted to acknowledge, which is also related to capacity, is that we're thinking about next year's legislative session and what some of our key asks will be to the legislature. And I just want to name that the three kind of key areas we keep honing in on that really are all specific to capacity is increase per diem for advisory council members to make this work more accessible and equitably sort of compensated, increasing the number of times that these groups can meet, which is, I know, really restrictive right now about how in the weeds we can get on things and ends up feeling like we're squishing a bunch in our meetings and no one loves that. And also sort of recalibrating these due dates that have been, as we all know, a little off kilter since we started because of timing. If we could just proactively kind of recalibrate those so we can all just take a deep breath and feel like we're on a trajectory that everyone feels good about. So I'll pause there. I'll acknowledge that I'm going to be sending out a follow-up survey after this meeting to gather some input on, reflections on where we've been and how we want to move forward with moving pieces. I want to honor that our goal was to start public comment. Let me make sure I'm looking at my agenda. Public comment at 10:35, which is right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pause. Let us do 10 minutes of public comment. And then we can also see if there's any clarifying questions folks have from the Advisory Council and Interagency Committee. So yeah, members of the public, thank you for being with us today. The floor is gonna be open for the next 10 minutes. I would love to check now and just get a feel for who might want to speak during this public comment period, so we can just keep a queue and tabs on time. And also acknowledge we have another public comment period that will be at 12:15. So does anybody from the public want to speak? Raise your hand, drop it in the chat, or just take your mic off. Okay, I'm going to leave that invitation open, but also invite then Advisory Council or Interagency Committee members. If you have any just kind of clarifying questions about the update I just gave, I welcome that. Go ahead, Abby.
Thanks, Phoebes. I just want to pose a question. I know that the team is working on the guidance for the environmental benefit spending reports, but just to pass forward a message that came from our agency was really thinking about all the ARPA money that sort of distributed in, at least by our agency, primarily in August through December of 2020. And so that's such a unusual moment in time. We were just trying to get a sense of whether the team was thinking that 3-year look back was going to include that time period or not. And maybe other agencies have even different timeframes as to when their ARPA money was being distributed.
That's a great question. We do have an explicit section in this scoping document I described that's what is the specifics of the time frame we want to decide on. So I'm going to add that point to that document because I think it's a really important one for us to think about, just these other kind of major grant funding pools or pass-through funding pools and their alignment. Thank you. Yeah, make sure that's in there. Thank you. And we'll follow up with you about how to do that. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Open for a couple more minutes.
Hey, Phoebes, it's Claire. I just had a quick question about the legislative request and particularly any recalibrating of due dates to allow for meaningful engagement. And I was just wondering if the thought was if we were to move forward with an ask, if that would be something that we'd also be talking about at a future meeting of the bodies in terms of collectively thinking about what new due dates, if any, would be appropriate and what kind of time we'd be asking for to allow for that meaningful engagement.
Thanks for that question, Claire. Yes, I feel very strongly that sort of legislative asks will need to be sort of a focus of one of our next upcoming meetings, October or November. And it's really important to us that if you all generally feel good about these ideas, that then we're collaboratively thinking about the specifics of the asks and signing, collectively, I think our support for those asks makes sense that the groups that are, that all the stakeholders sort of in the work are collaboratively putting together this proposal. So I think in my mind, the next steps have been we at A&R sort of put together maybe a draft idea, draft for what that recalibration might look like. Or to add a little bit of substance to these requests and then send them to you all to review, modify, edit, change, and then we can have a touch point at our next meeting in October, maybe just to reflect and give some additional thoughts or feedback, and then maybe we aim to consent, kind of have a final consent and process of signing on to something in November or December. And yeah, so I'd welcome, Carla in, sort of your other hat here. Of sort of being on the EJ coordinator team. I welcome if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yes, internally, Carla Raimundi from the Agency of Natural Resources. Internally, I am in the process of meeting with leadership, Secretary Moore and Deputy Secretary Maggie Gendron, to identify, since the Agency of Natural Resources wears two hats with regards to the implementation of Act 154, to identify what kind of role we're gonna play with supporting legislative requests and what those can look like. So, but most definitely, Phoebes and Claire, I think meeting and at a later time to go over some of the requests that we are presenting and how to provide support for those is something that we're definitely gonna dedicate some time to.
Thanks, Carla. Um, yeah, and I want to acknowledge too that, there's plenty more I think we could think of as like potential legislative priorities in this realm of EJ work beyond what's here. And part of what we're trying to think about is, having a long-term vision where we can collaboratively be talking about, what would like the environmental justice legislative package for the year be? Maybe there's funding requests across the different covered agencies, ask for other capacity, maybe addressing policy barriers that we've been grappling with. So I think our hope is over time we can sort of build a process together where we are really collaboratively, as we sort of confront what it means to implement environmental justice at the agency level, taking stock of what we need to collaborate with the legislature on to make the work unfold the way they've asked for it to unfold in this law. But I think what this set of bullets and focus really is about is acknowledging it's hard for us to even get to the point of having those conversations in a good way if we can't meet the way we need to, if our due dates are creating an sense of urgency and a sense of like we can't take the time it takes to do those sort of thoughtful proposals, if our advisory council members are unable to meaningfully engage in the work because they're being undercompensated. So this is really addressing some like core capacity things that I hope will then sort of lay the groundwork for down the road some more bigger sort of picture goals around how we want to overall expand capacity for environmental justice work in the state. It's a little more commentary, but I just wanted to give that context. Yeah, Rachel.
Based on what I heard there, Phoebes, too, about the potential that agencies in the interagency committee may independently be seeking additional funds, I guess I would maybe ask that they run those by you, because I think what I was hearing is that there may be an opportunity for like a joint ask, or at least we would want to know if there's Act 154 implementation related requests going from different agencies. So I guess that's maybe an ask that those folks maybe let you know, and then we can try to coordinate.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Rachel. And this follow-up survey will definitely kind of speak to some of these things and gather some of your thoughts on these pieces. So, all right, well, we're just a couple minutes away from our next agenda item. You all know how to reach me if other things pop up, questions and things like that. I just want to give another couple minutes. Anybody from the public, if there's anything at this point. Okay, great. All right, so with that, I think we can transition to our next agenda item. And yeah, so just want to give some introductory context for, stop sharing, give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, let me, I want to give a little context for the next part of our agenda, because it is sort of the first time that we're going to be, talking about the environmental justice focused population definition in sort of depth. And, essentially, I'm just going to pull some notes here. As I mentioned earlier, the Vermont Environmental Justice Law calls on the Advisory Council and the Interagency Committee to jointly consider and recommend to the General Assembly on or before December 1st, 2023, amendments to the terminology, thresholds, and criteria of the definition of environmental justice focused populations, including whether to include populations more likely to be at a higher risk for poor health outcomes in response to environmental burdens. So I'm going to drop that very long sentence in the chat for those like myself who have a hard time following it to reference back to. So this is what specifically the law is calling for you all to do. And the goal for today's presentation is really just to start helping us get on the same page about like what are the current terminologies, thresholds, and criteria of the definition, because it does exist in the law. That just seemed like a good starting point because it is a pretty technical thing, but it's also in some ways like the most crucial definition to the work we're doing, because the whole law is oriented around making sure that however we define this environmental justice focused population, that those are the folks who don't bear disproportionate environmental burdens and who are proportionately benefiting from the environmental benefits that we're talking about. So, you know, to the extent we're talking about equity work and environmental policy, this definition is how we're sort of measuring whether or not we're achieving that goal. It's determining who we're trying to ensure is proportionately receiving those benefits. So it's just a really crucial piece of the work that we have together and lays the foundation ultimately for a lot of the other work we're called to do. So to kick off sort of your review and consideration of this definition, we have staff from the Department of Environmental Conservation. And these are folks who have been involved in DEC's Environmental Justice Working Group for years and have been putting a lot of time and thought into these issues long before even the Vermont EJ law passed. So really appreciate their continued presence in this work. So what they've done is essentially put together a series of data visualizations of the current definition and a fact sheet that's meant to help us all better understand the current definition, terminology, thresholds, and criteria. What I want to make really clear is that they are no way providing any suggestions or recommendations. This is really just meant to be informational and really the DEC staff who are with us today are here in the capacity of Agency of Natural Resources staff providing technical assistance, you know, as I mentioned earlier, per the law, administrative, legal, and technical assistance. So as I said, this is really meant to be a starting point. We only have 50 minutes. I've already blown through like 2 of those in my opening. But like I said, it's a really critical piece. So we're hoping this at least just opens the door, helps us start to create this baseline knowledge together. And this will be far from the last time we have an opportunity to reconnect about this work, including with our presenters. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rebecca Williams, who's an environmental analyst in the Planning and Innovation Division with the Department of Environmental Conservation, and Emily Rogers, who is an accessible assistance specialist in the Environmental Assistance Office at DEC. So thank you both for being here, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Phoebes. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to make sure you can see the presentation that I'm sharing. Thumbs up from someone. Great. Thank you so much. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today. Again, my name is Emily Rogers. I work in the Environmental Assistance Office as an accessible assistance specialist, which means that a lot of my job is working with underrepresented and overburdened communities here in Vermont to proactively address environmental compliance issues with the goal of avoiding the need for enforcement action. I really appreciate the opportunity to attend this conversation today and hope that our presentation will help these bodies make some important decisions and recommendations concerning environmental justice here in Vermont. And this portion of the meeting will review the information in the environmental justice fact sheet and visual aids document that Phoebes mentioned, which is publicly available in the Environmental Justice Learning Library and included in the list of resources from today's. I think Phoebes or Carla just dropped it in the chat if you wanted to pull it up. And so for some context, the image on your screens is the foundational visual aid that was created by the Conservation Law Foundation that shows the geographical locations of environmental justice focus populations, or EJFPs, here in Vermont. And I just want everybody to be mindful that this visualization is just one interpretation of the data included in the definition of environmental justice focus populations in the Vermont Environmental Justice Law. And we're going to go over many different interpretations of that definition. As Phoebes went over, also, I just wanted to reiterate and kind of ground us in the language of the law. So the Vermont Environmental Justice Law tasks these two groups present today, the Advisory Council and the Interagency Committee, with reviewing the definition of the environmental justice focused populations and recommending revisions to the legislature. And this is a process that will be repeated at least every 5 years in order to ensure that the definition achieves Vermont's environmental justice policy. So this won't be just a one and done type of exercise. This will be a reiterative process that these bodies will do frequently. And as A&R staff, we're here to provide technical support to that charge. So what we'll be doing today is presenting the current status of the definition, as well as laying out many types of changes that the bodies could recommend to the General Assembly. And then again, just grounding down into that law, the law that we're all discussing today is the environmental justice law gives these bodies the responsibility to consider and recommend, as Phoebe said, the terminology, the thresholds, and the criteria of the definition of environmental justice focused populations. In the law, again, talking about deadlines, that deadline is coming up on December 1st. 2023 to provide those recommendations to the General Assembly. But I also just wanted to reiterate that this work will be foundational in coming up or revising the environmental justice focused population definition. That work will be foundational to determining which communities in Vermont will be considered environmental justice focused populations. And that determination will impact many important factors, including the flow of funding. It will act as the basis for the mapping tool that we will be developing down the line, and it will shape how Vermont moves forward in incorporating environmental justice into its everyday practices. So before I pass the presentation off to Rebecca, who really created all these visual aids for your use and consideration, I just wanted to pause and see if there were any clarifying questions from anyone. All right. So next up, Rebecca will be presenting the definition of environmental justice focused populations as it is currently written in the Vermont Environmental Justice Law, and we'll be explaining how differing interpretations of that definition impact the populations that are covered here in Vermont. Their presentation will include the visual aids and talking about the differences between those different visual aids.
Thank you, Emily, so much for that contextualization. Like Emily said, my name is Rebecca Williams. I'm an environmental justice analyst with the Department of Environmental Conservation within the Agency of Natural Resources. I'm going to go over a little bit of the visual aids that we've created about the current definition of the environmental justice law. If it feels a little bit like a college class, please feel free to take out your textbook, silence your cell phones, pull out a pen. I will stop for clarifying questions along the way. And I can be a little bit of a speed talker. So if anyone has technical difficulties or if I start to lose you, please don't hesitate to shout me out. I am totally open to it. Don't let me completely run the train away. So we're going to start with the current definition of the environmental justice law, which is as follows. Any census block group in which the annual median household income is not more than 80% of the state median household income. Persons of color and Indigenous people comprise at least 6% or more of the population, or at least 1% or more of households have limited English proficiency. Now, as it stands, that definition can be interpreted two ways based on the placement of the word or that you see at the end of subsection B. The first way is an environmental justice focused population is any block group that meets any of these three thresholds, which is how we have typically interpreted it. Or in order for a census block group to be defined as an environmental justice focused population, it must meet threshold A, the median household income threshold, and either threshold B or threshold C. We wanted to take a moment and point out this variation as that may be one of the many that this body will likely want to address. Next slide. So the definition is twofold in its approach, depending on how you look at it. It defines a threshold and also a geography or a grouping of people that must meet that threshold. The National Environmental Justice mapping tools vary on the geography used in their approach. So we wanted to look at one that's outlined in our environmental justice law, as well as briefly touch on another that's commonly used in a lot of other mapping tools, just to clarify any questions. So we'll start with the geography in Vermont's law, which you can see outlined at the bottom of your screen. A census block group is essentially an area with an amount of people approximating a collection of city blocks, hence the name block group. While data is taken on the block level, that data is unavailable to the public due to privacy concerns. So the block group level is the smallest geography that we have to work with. It typically contains between 600 and 3,000 people, but as you're all aware, Vermont can be a little weird. We've got some census block groups with 0 people, looking at you, South Burlington Airport. We've also got some census block groups with a few more than 3,000 people, so that's just a rough approximation. It's also important to note that the size of these areas is dependent on the number of people contained within them, not the actual land area. So some of these census block groups look significantly larger than others, even though they might be smaller technically. And then at the top of your screen, you'll see census tract definition, which is the definition or the geography that some federal and state EJ maps use. It's larger than a census block group. You can think about it as a collection of block groups or as a subdivision of a county. That typically holds between 1,200 and 8,000 people, aiming for about 4,000 people. Basically, it just covers more people. It's a little larger of an area. Typically speaking, when you're looking at this type of data, it's best practice to use the smallest geographic area available to you. Otherwise, you're assigning a characteristic to a larger population that may not apply to everyone. One example I'd like to give is income. If you take the median household income of a census tract, so that's that larger group, it could be around 80K, but at the block group level, that tract becomes 3 different groups. If 2 of those groups have a median income of 40K and the last block group contains a particularly affluent neighborhood and has a median household income of 160K, if you're looking at that at the census block group level, you will see that variation. But if you're looking at that at the census tract level, you might miss that variation and therefore group those 2 maybe less affluent communities in with that more affluent community and assign that characteristic to all of them, when it may not be true necessarily overall. So that's just one variation that I'd like to point out. Next slide, please. So this is just a visual of what I just said. Starting at the top, we break the country into states, the states into counties, and then those counties are broken into census tracts. Those tracts are broken into block groups, which are broken into blocks. And past that, we can't get further, so you don't have to worry about that at all. I will actually, Emily, can go back one. I'll pause for any clarifying questions. All right.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but if you could go a little slower, that'll be wonderful. It's a lot to process, and I just want to make sure that, I can take as much as I can within your presentation. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay.
Rebecca, I just wanted to add to that this discussion of census block group versus census tract was a discussed topic during the EJ law definition, and I don't think that the General Assembly came to necessarily a clear understanding. They went forward, but I just wanted to underscore that this topic did come up at the legislature, and there's some presentations that the legislature heard, and I imagine this will be an ongoing conversation. So just wanted to the extent you can glean from Rebecca an understanding of this difference, that's important.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rachel. All right, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll move on to the next slide. So the previous slides were how the populations are grouped, and now we're going to look at how the information for those groups is gathered. So using the current environmental justice topic variables, there are 2 options for getting the data. You're looking at the American Community Survey or the census. The main difference between those 2, stepping back, is that a survey collects data from a randomized portion of people and extrapolates out to assign that randomized sample to a whole population. Whereas in theory, a census actually collects data from every member of a population. So typically speaking, in a world with perfect data, a census would be more accurate, but obviously we don't live in that world, so there's a lot of variation there. So when we're looking at the data sources for the current definition in the EJ law, we do have two options. The 2021 American Community Survey, which is a survey covering 2017 to 2021. It takes an average over those years and extrapolates from a smaller random population to get a larger picture of the state of Vermont. And then we have the 2020 census, which again, in theory, is a count of every person in the state of Vermont at a point in time in which the questionnaire was distributed. Though, as we can all remember, 2020 had some unexpected events that may have maybe made that data collection a bit more difficult. So that is something important to keep in mind. It's also important to note that the main function of the census is to determine congressional apportionment, whereas the American Community Survey is actually aiming to capture those changes in social and economic characteristics. So the purpose of those two is different, and that's why we might have different data sets based on which one you're looking at. Because of the focus on the congressional apportionment with the census did not collect any median household income or limited English proficiency data that we have access to. So we cannot use the census for those two variables. It's also important to note that federal tools with similar goals of what this body may be trying to put together are typically using American Community Survey data, not census data. Next slide, please. And is that speed a little better? Can I get a thumbs up? Awesome. Now I'd like to draw attention to the one single census data that we do have. If you look at the rightmost column, you'll see the source for the data. And if you look at the second row, which is looking at the BIPOC individual definition in the environmental justice law, that is the only one that we can pull from the census. So I just wanted to draw your attention there again. The law does not explicitly define what each variable uses in regards to how the data is managed during calculation. So we use the methodology for our visuals that was employed by the nonprofit that assisted with the creation of the initial visual aid that you saw on the first slide, the Conservation Law Foundation, for the sake of consistency. So what I mean by this in regards to the methodology is take, for example, the BIPOC variable that I just mentioned. In the law as it's currently written, for the BIPOC population, there is not a clear outline of who is included in a BIPOC population other than the breakdown of the BIPOC acronym. Due to this lack of a definition in the law, we used the methodology previously employed by CLF that helped create the initial visual aid. That methodology is to subtract the number of individuals identifying as white alone from the total population and consider the remaining population as the BIPOC population. Once the BIPOC population is calculated, we're able to calculate the percentage of the total population that the BIPOC population makes up and determine if it meets the 6% threshold needed to include that census block group as an environmental justice focused population. The median household income is given by the Census Bureau. So that is a threshold that we're given. We can take 80% of that value and use that threshold to sort out the census block groups within the state. And then the limited English proficiency data is available to us as a self-defined count. So we take the number of identifying limited English proficiency individuals or households, find what portion of the total population they represent, and see if that portion is greater or less than 1%. Now I'm going to dig into the nitty-gritty visuals, so I'll pause here for some clarifying questions as well. Alrighty, let's get into it then. So these two visualizations look really similar, but cover pretty different percentages of the state. So the map on the left, you saw at the beginning of the presentation, that's from the Conservation Law Foundation. It's the original map made when the law was first passed. It was made using the American Community Survey 2019. So that's covering the time period from 2015 to 2019 and taking an average over that time period, extrapolating out. That data using any threshold, covers about 52% of Vermont's population, according to the Conservation Law Foundation. The visual on the right is our version of that map using the same methodology, but instead of using the, thank you, Rachel, for that. Instead of using the 2019 American Community Survey, we used the 2021 Community Survey. So shift that 5-year period 2 years later. We're looking at exactly the same variables in the same population. However, using the same threshold, using the 2021 data, it covers 62% of the total population of Vermont. So that is a roughly 10% increase over the course of 2 years. And as Rachel pointed out in the chat, if you didn't notice, the environmental justice focused populations, as we're defining them currently, are highlighted in green.
Rebecca, can you, oh, sorry, I'm seeing this hand up.
I'll take Abby's question first. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to, so would you then say that the map on the right that the EJ A&R team did has a greater percentage of the population where the definition, where the law has not been met? Trying to figure out how to ask my question.
So
kind of like, yeah, like the summary of the difference between the two.
Yeah, summary of the difference is 52% of the population of the state in the map on the left is an environmental justice focused population. 62% of the map on the right is an environmental justice focused population.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Rachel.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw attention to that distinction that you just made and flag, like this would be a policy call that I think these bodies may want to consider, is that when you visualize the data there, you know, what percent of the total population is covered. And that certainly came up in the legislature asking the question, if now that we visualize it all and we're seeing that the census block groups identify 60, what did you say, 61% of the total population, is that the focus that we want to call to? So just want to underscore a decision point that you're highlighting, I think.
Thank you for dropping that in the chat, Carla. Yeah, Claire.
Thanks, Rebecca. And just wanted to reconfirm my understanding. This is using the version of the definition statute where to be considered a focused population, you just need to meet one of the criteria, correct?
Yes. Okay. So the census block groups highlighted are meeting any one of the criteria. Some of them meet multiple, and we'll get to that later, but here they are meeting at least one. Are there any other questions? Alrighty. Moving on to the next one. So for a lot of these visualizations moving forward, you're going to see two visual aids on the slides. The one on the right in blue is going to show Vermont's total population distribution. So census block groups with a darker shade of blue will indicate a more dense population or a greater population in that area. And then the map on the left will be the environmental justice focused population definition as we're referring to it for that visual aid. So the map on the right will stay the same. It will always, the blue map on the right at least, will always be the total population distribution. And the map on the left will always be the environmental justice focused population. Yes, Carla.
I'm wondering whether you could zoom in to the presentation so that we can see better the legend.
I don't have that option to be able to do that, but these are available in the learning library. All of these and the titles correspond with the ones in that document. So if you wanted to pull that up separately, you may be able to see better through that. But unfortunately, I'm not able to zoom in through the presentation.
Okay, that's fine. I threw the link on the chat earlier for folks.
Also, if you click on the pop out little icon on top,
the presentation pops out in a new window and you can see it in a bigger form. That is helping me.
Great, thank you so much, everyone. So digging into this first visual aid, the map on the left shows median household income in the state of Vermont. So any census block group highlighted in green meets the threshold for median household income. So only that one part of the definition, we are not looking at the other two. As a reminder, the law outlines that the income environmental justice focused population threshold is no more than 80% of the state median household income. The median household income for the state of Vermont as it currently stands is $67,674, which sets the 80% threshold at no more than $54,193 as the median household income. So any census block group that you're seeing highlighted in green has an average median household income less than or equal to $54,193. With the threshold set at this amount, approximately 19% of the population is highlighted, which is spread out over about 35% of the total census block groups, included in the environmental justice focused population. So the disparity between the percent population and the total block groups included is likely due to the trend of median household income typically being higher in more urban areas, which also typically have larger population sizes. You'll see in the future visual aids that typically the number of block groups included in that percentage breakdown is roughly equivalent to the percent of the total population that it represents. So this is a factor unique to median household income that I just wanted to stop and acknowledge. All right, next slide. And I'll take a brief pause at the end of every visual aid slide just to see if there's any clarifying questions. My internet is a little laggy, so if you want to just jump in, that's also great. On this slide, we're looking at the BIPOC population variable in the definition, only the BIPOC population variable, not limited English proficiency or median household income. So the census block groups highlighted in green meet the BIPOC threshold. As a reminder, that threshold is at least 6% of the total population being identified as BIPOC in the census block group. With this threshold, approximately 45% of the total population, which is spread out over about 41% of the total census blocks, is included as a focused population. Next slide. And then looking at the last single variable, this is looking at limited English proficiency households alone. So as a reminder, that limited English proficiency threshold is at least 1% of the total population in a census block group. With the 1% threshold, approximately 15% of the total population, which is spread out over about 14% of the total block groups, is included as an environmental justice focused population variable. Alrighty, and next slide. So this is the map that we showed at the very beginning. This is meeting any of those thresholds. So this is including BIPOC threshold, the median household income threshold, or the limited English proficiency threshold. It is essentially those last three individual maps all put together. So this is the percent of the state that it would be identified with the current definition using the methodology that CLF used, which comes out to a total population percentage of about 62% in environmental justice focused populations. And that is all taken from the American Community Survey. Next slide, please. So this map is the same as the last map, essentially, except it is showing you the number of thresholds that each census block group highlighted meets. So the purple census block groups are meeting only one environmental justice focused population threshold. The yellow block groups are meeting 2, and the green block groups are meeting 3. So all 3 definitions are met. You can see the total population percentage breakdown
in the rightmost column of the table. So I'll let you look at that now. It is important to note that the at least one does include 2 and 3, and then the at least 2 number includes 3 as well. And then the all 3 one is only those green blocks. So instead of being like the ones that are only purple, it's at least purple, if that makes sense. No, Jennifer, we do not have a layer with towns included at the moment. Thank you for asking. And while we have this pulled up, I do realize that it's a bit difficult to see the Burlington area and some of the more urban areas. There are purple, yellow, and green block groups in those areas. If you're interested in more zoomed in maps, please let us know and we can get copies of those to you. It's just difficult to display those if you're looking at a statewide level. You have to cut some stuff out. But those are available, so please just let us know. Great, thank you. And if you can send an email to either Phoebes or Emily or myself at the end of this meeting, we'll get a list going and distribute those. Do we have any clarifying questions on that one, or does anyone want another second to look at this? Okay. All right, next slide, please. So in this one, we're looking at that 2 threshold value. So on this one, we're looking at census block groups that meet both the limited English proficiency and BIPOC threshold, which, as a reminder again, the limited English proficiency threshold is at least 1% of the total population. The BIPOC threshold is at least 6%. With both of those thresholds set, approximately 11% of the state's total population falls into that category, which is spread out over approximately 9% of the total census block groups. All right. Next slide, please. This is a combination median household income and BIPOC EJFP threshold map. So the median household income threshold is no more than 80% state median household income. 80% of the median household income is approximately $54,193. So any census block group highlighted here has a median household income equal to or less than that value, and a BIPOC population at least 6% of the total population. With both thresholds met, approximately 17% of the total population, spread out over about 17% of the total census block groups, is included as an environmental justice focused population. Alrighty, next slide. So this is the last 2 threshold map. This is median household income and limited English proficiency. So median household income no more than 54,193, and limited English proficiency households of at least 1% of the total population. With those 2 thresholds met, we're seeing approximately 7% of the total population spread out over about 6% of the total census block groups identified as environmental justice focused populations. And I'll pause for any clarifying questions here as well, because it's going to get a little nitty gritty for a second after this.
I love that it hasn't been nitty gritty yet.
Strap in, just give it a second.
You're talking to a data analyst, so.
All right, Emily, if you can bring up the complicated slide, please. So these maps are using approximately the same time period, looking at only the BIPOC threshold, which is 6% of the total population of the census block group identifying as a BIPOC individual. The only difference in these two visual aids is where the data came from. So the one on the right is the one that you've already seen. That's pulled from the American Community Survey. So as a reminder, a survey takes a randomized small population and extrapolates out. So not everyone in the state was asked these questions for this. They took a randomized sample of just a few people in the state and extrapolated out to get an overall trend. The visual aid on the left is from the census in 2020. So ideally everyone in the state answered it. The race question on the census and the American Community Survey, it is important to note, were written fairly differently. And I could talk extensively about maybe the ramifications of how that question was written, as I'm sure a lot of you can as well. Just the important thing to note is that using the same methodology and the same threshold, changing only the data source, the 2021 ACS data on the right gives you 44.5% of the total population, while the 2020 census identifies 90% of the total population of Vermont as meeting the BIPOC environmental justice focused population threshold. That is 99.0%.
Wait, sorry. Can I ask a clarifying question right quick?
Yes, please.
I thought I'm confused as to why the left number is bigger than the 60%.
Yeah. So the 60% number is pulled only from the American Community Survey.
Oh,
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So this is the first time I'm showing you a visual aid using census data.
Got it. So we were using census blocks, but we were all of it was based on the ACS. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Rebecca, for those that just joined, can you repeat the CLF methodology for using census? How we define BIPOC? I think you described it.
Absolutely. Let
Just
me
for those that
click
just
back
joined.
to it. Okay, so the methodology that we used is the same as methodology that the Conservation Law Foundation used to create the original map from when this law was passed. That methodology is because for the BIPOC variable as the law is currently written, the BIPOC population is not clearly defined other than that breakdown of the BIPOC acronym. So what we did was copy CLF's methodology, which is subtract the number of individuals identifying as white alone from the total population of the census block group, and use the remaining portion as the population of BIPOC individuals in that block group. We then used that portion to take the percentage of that block group identifying as BIPOC to determine if it meets the 6% threshold needed to include that census block group as an environmental justice focused population. And I see another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Raya. It's me again. I guess the other question that I have is, it's one thing if it just is, a higher filter, but at least just looking at the maps, it looks like it's also highlighting some different places. Like, it doesn't look like it's a finer filter. It looks like it's like different data, I guess. So, do you have, and I'm obviously just looking at it on the map basis. I don't know how true that is. Do you have a sense of like, what's that, like, if there's not as much overlap as we would like between the census data and the ACS data?
To be completely honest with you, I don't know how much overlap there is off the top of my head. I know there's approximately 550 census block groups in the state of Vermont. And with 90% covered, I would assume the overlap is fairly substantial, but the actual number I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just, obviously this is not a refined method, but I'm just looking at it and I'm like, oh, some of the ones that are colored, which aren't that many on the ACS map, aren't on the census map, which is when most of them are colored. So that seems a little odd.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also, just to go back a little bit to what I said earlier, the census actually asked the question differently than the American Community Survey, so that could have something to do with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I believe I saw Megan's hand first.
Yeah, I just wanted to, hi, to introduce myself really quickly, I'm Megan Kuzno. I'm the program manager of the Environmental Assistance Office in the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation. And I've been working with Rebecca and Emily on this project as well. So just a couple things to throw out. One is one of the purposes of presenting this data is there needs to be a decision made by the working groups, the interagency committee and the advisory council on which data source we'd want to use. So one of the purposes of presenting the slides in this way is to show if we're to use the census data, which is the map on the left, that's how much of the state would be covered by the EJFP definition. And then if we're to use the American Community Survey data, the map on the right, that's how much of the different block groups would be covered by the BIPOC threshold in the environmental justice focused population data. And the other quick thing, just to clarify, Rebecca, so when we have the tables, we have the number of block groups that are included, and then we have the percent of the total population. And those percents of total population are the percent of the populations in those block groups, correct? It's not, we're not saying that 90% of Vermont's population is considered BIPOC. We're just saying of the block groups that meet that definition, 90% of Vermont's population lives within them. So it could be, we have a block group where it's 7% BIPOC, 93% non-BIPOC, but it would be included in a block group that meets the definition.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification, Megan.
Yeah, just wanted to throw in, we're not saying that it's 90% of the population, it's just 90% of the population lives within those areas.
Yes. And then Jennifer, I believe your hand was raised next.
Yeah, just wondering if anyone has the two questions that were posed so differently to get these results. I think it would be helpful to see that.
Do you mean the questions that were asked earlier in the presentation?
No, I mean the questions on the survey relating to race and the questions on the census.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have those available in the materials, but examples of both of those surveys, or the survey and the census, are available on the Census Bureau website. So you can look at a blank version of both of those.
We can work on, there's been a few, I think, clarifying or additional data points of interest. So I think our team can regroup too and see if there's just like some updates we can make, like having towns marked on some of the maps or zoomed in was one, making sure you know what the differences were on those two data collection things. I actually have a question that I'm realizing about what are the total populations of these criteria in general in Vermont, just to have that sort of comparative analysis. So yeah, well, we can follow up and support folks getting access to that information. It's a great question, Jennifer.
And then, Zoraya, did you have an additional question?
Nope, old hand.
Okay, great. And then Rachel.
I just was curious if do we have many or do the census block groups, is that such a large area that it covers multiple towns? And maybe that's to Jennifer's point that we could have similar, we could have a census block group that has multiple towns. Is that true? Or I think that's a question.
Yeah, I would say it really depends on the urban to rural characteristics of the town. So the reason the lines are so densely packed right around where Burlington is because Burlington's made up of a lot of census block groups. But as I'm sure you can see in the Northeast Kingdom, that huge census block group probably includes a lot of small towns. The census block groups are just aiming for an approximate number of people. So depending on where you are, that is true or untrue that it can cover multiple towns. If there's no more further questions, I will show you one more visual aid and then I will stop. Okay, so this last visual aid is in a similar vein to the one that we just saw. So the visual aid on the right is only American Community Survey data. The visual aid on the left is census and American Community Survey data. So this is looking at the census block groups that meet any threshold. Just like the CLF map and the first one of ours that I showed you, the census block groups highlighted here are meeting at least one of the parts of the definition. On the right, that is the visual aid that shows that approximately 62% of the state of Vermont is included in those areas. On the left, we're using the census data for only the BIPOC threshold, and then including the median household income and limited English proficiency census block groups with that census data BIPOC block group set. So combining those two data sources, using the same thresholds and the same methodology, you're getting 92.8% of the state is included in those census block groups. And that's meeting any threshold in the environmental justice law. And then I can take any remaining questions that you have. Alrighty, I will let Emily close it out then. Thank you.
So yeah, we just wanted to loop back around and talk about what these bodies are charged with in the environmental justice law in relation to all of these data visualizations.
Sorry,
So again,
Emily, there's a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It's really powerful. It's going to take me a little while to process all of that. I really, really appreciate it. I was wondering, and this may not be a question to answer right now, but I was wondering if you've seen any examples of kind of like mixed methods and bringing in storytelling with the quantitative data. I feel like at VDH, we've been using frameworks. We use the racial equity data roadmap and just some other frameworks that are really kind of articulating the need for storytelling and data. So I don't know if this is answerable. Just wondering if you've seen any examples where there's like a mixed methods and triangulation approach used to kind of like bring in the voices and that human aspect. So anyways, we don't have to answer that now. Just a question that's kind of like looming for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question and one that would be a fruitful discussion between the bodies after this presentation. But just to ground back into the law, the Interagency Council and the Advisory Council are charged with the following. The Agency of Natural Resources, in consultation with the Environmental Justice Advisory Council and the Interagency Environmental Justice Committee, shall review the definitions contained in Section 6002 of this title at least every 5 years and recommend revisions to the General Assembly to ensure the definition achieves the environmental justice state policy. So thank you so much for your attention. We realize that this is like drinking from a fire hose and are here to answer questions today and also moving forward. So if you need to get in contact with us, we can share our email addresses and we're happy to answer questions as we're able to. Again, we are here to provide technical assistance. We're not here to make recommendations, but if you do have technical questions, we are happy to engage in those conversations. And yeah, thank you so much for your attention and trying to absorb so much information.
Thank you so much, Emily and Rebecca. Also, Megan and Jamie Bates, who I see is on the call as well, folks who were also involved in this project but didn't present today. Really appreciate it. So yeah, I know we did all the clarifying questions. We're 1 minute away from our scheduled break time. Yes, Carla, thank you. This is a great moment in the chat or otherwise, like if there's just additional information that this has spurred for you that you'd love to see, this will be regrouping and we'll be, sort of thinking about the next iteration, next touch point to continue the dialogue. Yeah, I think rather than trying to open up the floor to kind of reactions at this point, I think just first I'll just sort of take this information home, spend some time with the visual aids, and then, our next touch point hopefully can be revisiting maybe some data, some clarifying data, but actually getting a little bit more into some of our reactions and thoughts about how this might affect our thinking on what you all want to recommend. So with that said, any final comments or questions folks want to get in before we take our break? Yeah, please, Gail.
Will a new mapping tool provide the towns?
Rebecca, is there any limit to us being able to do a map that has towns included?
No, there's no limit to us being able to include a town, but I do want to emphasize that these are just visual aids. We're just taking the definition as it's written in the law and showing it to you in a picture. This is not a mapping tool. I know the law mentions the creation of a mapping tool. That's a totally separate entity that basically this presentation has not touched. We're just looking at the definition of an environmental justice focused population.
And to build on that, this discussion that the bodies will be having about the definition of environmental justice populations will impact that mapping tool in the future. But this is just a very foundational step that the bodies have to take to make sure that the definition will allow us to create a successful mapping tool. But that mapping tool is not what we're talking about today. And it's also these visual aids. No one in Department of Environmental Conservation or any of the covered agencies are allowed to use these maps as any kind of diagnostic tool. These are just purely for this exercise in trying to define environmental justice populations for this law and for Vermont.
Thank you.
Thank you both. So yeah, punchline, Gail, yeah, we can get your map with towns on it, like another data visualization with towns on it. And then the mapping tool becomes a whole nother sort of process that we're going to be engaging in collectively, that this informs, but is, yeah, distinct. Soraya, I think you're next in the queue. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wonder if we will, I know we just said we weren't gonna jump to recommendations, but it's hard for me to not do that around data. I wonder if at some point we will want to, like, if it will be possible for us to have like different levels across like the census versus the ACS, just to not be like exclusive of maybe if, especially, I think we'll need to know how the questions were asked before we make that, but I wonder if at some point we're going to be like, oh, we want to get kind of the highest levels from both of them, even if that means having different thresholds so that we aren't including like 100% of Vermont in the overall definitions. But I think that's kind of where my head's going.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that's the crux of the policy, the real policy question in front of us. To Rachel's point, it's sort of figuring out what the thresholds are that kind of meaningfully set us up to direct resources the way we're hoping to across the state. And I'm so okay, y'all, if we want to just flow with time and this is alive in the room, we can do that and just do that today. So I see next, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks for that presentation. It was really excellent. Really interesting data. And I think to ground any future conversation, I think it would be helpful. I know, like, I didn't follow the development or adoption of the EJ law closely, and so any recollections from folks who did about how the legislature arrived at the environmental justice focused population definition and what their intent was there. I just think having some of that grounding and background could be helpful for folks as we have this conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to offer that. I think Caitlin and I were in the room, I think, for most every meeting and have really detailed like dates and timestamps that we were kind of trying to grab for this purpose. So if it sounds like it would be helpful to get some legislative history or background, we can certainly, we should have a pretty good summary, can link those important committee sessions if you're interested. I think they would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to note there is a I'll drop it in the chat, but CLF did send us a summary of their sort of methodology they use with the legislature, so that's available in our learning library. I'll provide a link to that, and then yeah, I think Rachel, that extra context will be excellent. And the folks from CLF have been really available and accessible to answer questions as well, so we can connect dots where folks have questions. All right, Megan, I think you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to start by thanking Emily and Rebecca for their research, and just kind of when we're thinking about this, like we tried to take what the law has and put it onto paper, so it was easier to see geospatially what the law looks like. I think there are quite a few questions that are open around what evaluating the definition means. So I don't know if it would be helpful to brainstorm. Like we can be thinking about the level. So it's like, do we want to think about census tract level, census block group? Do we want to think about the town level? Because it seems like towns are resonating with people. Then there's thinking about the data sources, what data sources we want to use. Do we want to use one? Do we want to use another? Do we want to use a mixture of data sources? What factors we want to include in it and what thresholds. So just throwing out that there's a lot of different parts to the law when you start breaking it down between data, thresholds, different considerations. And it's just something to be thinking about as the interagency committee and advisory council, that there's just different parts, and it might be helpful to create a list of like the different things to think about and consider, and feeds that might be on the agenda for next meeting. So I might be skipping a little ahead, but there's just a lot of information here today, and this was probably just the start for a lot of the work.
Yeah, I know it's great. I've been taking notes, and Carly, I appreciate your prompt in the chat. Just if folks are like, oh, it would really help to see it broken down this way, or this data piece, just to help me wrap around the policy questions I have. That's what we're here for. So we'll gather what was already shared today, start with that, but it's an open conversation and it will be iterative. So, advance gratitude to the DEC team who's been working on this with us. And yeah, that's our plan, is sort of debrief after this meeting and just figure out what the next sort of offering is for all of you to keep us moving. I see Gail re-raised her hand, I believe, and then Nuvik, go ahead.
No, ignore it. I'm starting to have some technical issues again.
Okay.
Thanks, Gail.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Gail. Go ahead, Nuvik.
Yeah, thank you. So I posed a question in my chat because I was trying to understand or if, from a presentation, I'm not sure actually if the data representative looked at the U.S. Census to collect, to provide the information you guys gave us. Wondering actually if when we talked about the income disparities in Vermont, if there were at some point data that you guys looked at that actually talked about what is causing income disparities in Vermont, because to me, my understanding is like the AJ, the work we're doing actually is actually helping, I would say, policymakers to try really to understand how we can better serve folks who are mostly being impacted by the EJ benefits. So that's why I was heading to ask this question to see if there were any data, and if there were data, what did you learn from that data? Because truly, I am interested to understand how to better serve people. To me, unless we understand truly the root cause of the issue, policymakers may not be able to address the issue. So that's where I was heading to.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nuvik. It's one thing to say, here's the percentage of the population that is low income. It's another to look for data that helps give some context for why, so we can actually address the underlying issues. And I think this group will have to do both. In this presentation, our presenters were really focused on just showing us who's falling in those categories, not really doing sort of the research behind the why, at least in the context of this presentation. Not to say you haven't, but yeah, Emily, go ahead.
respond quickly. Yeah, the two data sources that Rebecca looked at, and Rebecca, jump in anytime, the census and the ACS, the American Community Survey, don't ask questions as to why. So we don't have data points, at least in the sources that we use. But I think this kind of loops back around to Amy's point at the end of the presentation, that storytelling can be really important in getting the full picture. And so that is maybe how these two bodies could go about answering those why questions. But yeah, that's not data that we have as technical assistants.
Yeah. So I think that's just part of what we can collaboratively be working toward, building with each other is, just we're sort of wrapping our mind around the challenge. And then the question becomes, if we're going to try to reduce these issues, like what's causing them, how do we do that? How do we bring a lot of different data into the story to try and paint the picture of why? All right, it was 11:45. I think we're through hands. So I'm going to have us go ahead and take our 5-minute break as planned. Again, lots to simmer on. If like something floats in your brain at midnight tonight, you're like, wait, this piece, just email me, and I'll make sure, we're sort of putting all these pieces together, and look forward to touching base on this at our next meeting. So thank you again, Rebecca, Emily, Megan, Jamie, for all your work, Bridget, on the DEC team helping to put this together. It means a lot. And we will regroup at 11:52. We'll give ourselves 6 minutes. Thanks, everyone. All right, I think we're 11:52. Folks start to trickle back in. We're going to be spending the time we have remaining, about 40 minutes or so, revisiting the core engagement principles. So, and I think we may have reached quorum since we started the meeting with advisory council. So that is good news. That means we can kind of proceed as planned. Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of wait until I see a little bit of camera life before jumping into it, but just an invitation for folks to slowly make their way back. Very great. All right. Oh. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and make sure we have the documents that we're going to be talking about available for folks to reference. So so there's been a lot of work going on, both in individual meetings of the advisory council and the interagency committee meeting, and just behind the scenes via email and gathering feedback, and to move us toward a more complete, more final version of the core principles of community engagement. And for folks who aren't familiar with this particular action item in the law. The Interagency Committee is charged as sort of the lead drafter on what's called a set of core principles that are meant to guide the community engagement plans that the 10 covered state agencies are required to put together by July 2025 under the current sort of due date framework. So these principles really are meant to be sort of a foundational framework for how we want to see community engagement in Vermont look, and with a particular focus on how do we engage environmental justice focused populations and communities, right? And so a real particular lens toward how do we do engagement that meaningfully engages Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people who speak languages other than English or have language access needs, and or low income Vermonters, right? So this document has been in a lot of circulation. You've had kind of varying time to review. And Carla, I don't know if you're able to just sort of drop the links in the chat just for folks to be able to reference. That would be really helpful. We can also do it. There we go. Thank you, Carla. I see it now. Great. So draft 3 is available in the chat if folks want to just pull that up and look at what's happened. There's also a document that Alex put together that kind of provides just reference for how this iteration of the draft came to be. Like, we've been doing at every stage, so just kind of help explain, like, hey, we can merge principles 6, 8, and 3 together, and now it's this principle, just if folks want to sort of backtrack their way to some of the edits. So I just went ahead and dropped into the chat just who's here in the room and also who's not in the room. As I mentioned, I do believe we're now at quorum for the advisory council, which means that we do have the opportunity to kind of consent to the proposal that I had posed to the group. So I'm going to pull that up on my screen here just so we can all be on the same page. Just getting a computer a second. Da-da-da. Oh, we're so good right till the end. Sorry, y'all. It's coming. So my hope for the time we have left, and I recognize it's a little bit tighter than we wanted, is just to really gut check where we're at with sort of saying, we feel pretty good about this draft, good enough about this draft that we think it's appropriate to really shift into a final stage of gathering additional stakeholder input. You know, like, this reflects our best work and now, and our best, sort of representation of what we've heard from communities that we're representing about their needs. And now we'd like to go to the next phase and sort of kind of intentionally decide on a set of time. We'd like to keep this sort of open and available for final rounds of feedback. So that is the proposal in front of us. And since my screen just refuses to share, I'm gonna go ahead and just copy it in the chat because that'll work too. So what I'm hoping we can just do is go around circle process style, just following the list in the chat, and get folks' reaction to the proposal, which is essentially the Advisory Council and Interagency Committee consent to draft 3 of the core principles of community engagement being posted online for final stakeholder feedback for a period of fill in the blank days. So I want to hear how you feel about this proposal and how many days you think we should keep this open for. After this feedback period, input will be meaningfully integrated into a final draft for the Advisory Council and Interagency Committee to adopt via consensus and share with covered agencies to begin their planning process. Yeah, so basically just want to go around and just gut check with the folks, like, how are you feeling about, consenting to the proposal as written in the chat? And how many days, roughly, or months do you think it would be appropriate to kind of keep this open so we can maybe just sort of settle on a goal for ourselves? So I'm going to kick it over to Gretel and Grace with housing. Y'all see where you're at.
Yes. Just want to say
Great.
thank you first for putting all the work into this. I really appreciate it, and I really found it helpful to see how the principles have kind of evolved. And I appreciate you asking us all for input and really like taking that input into the final draft. So yes, I think they're looking great. And then in terms of how long it should be put out, I would say like 30 days minimum. Maybe 60 days, but I'm interested to see everybody else's thoughts.
Great. Thank you. Jump to Abby.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess, in awe and general reaction to the true time it takes to do this type of work in environment of reaching consensus and having full engagement. It's amazing in comparison to how quickly in our normal day we make these decisions and draft these documents and don't necessarily use such a process. So I just want to show appreciation and hold space for kind of all the intention that has gone into getting these principles to this stage and acknowledging that there's more steps that remain. So yeah, I guess I feel similarly. I think they're looking really good. And I'm not sure that I have any specific comments to add. I'll keep looking through the reference material and see if something comes up from my perspective. But just I'm more just in appreciation of the process so far.
Thanks, Abby. I'm just curious at this point, do you have any sort of blocking concerns if the group's feeling like, yeah, we could post this and kind of intentionally get some stakeholder feedback at this stage?
Yeah, I don't have
Like,
any
good,
concerns,
okay.
and I think, I think 30 days would, in my opinion, feel sufficient, but curious what others are thinking also.
Thanks. Amy.
Hi. Yes. Thank you. A few quick reflections. I think from my standpoint, I don't have any big concerns about moving it forward. I am mindful of wanting to hear our advisory council, where thoughts and reflections from that group and how we can be supportive to any of those. And VDH right now, we have a community-led approaches group that is actually working on a toolkit of community engagement. So right now I'm trying to like pull these things together. So, and I trust the group in terms of how long to keep it open.
Thanks, Amy. Stephanie?
Sorry, finding all the right buttons. I don't have anything novel to add. I appreciate all the work that went into it, and I think it's ready to be posted publicly. So nothing else to add from me. Thank you.
Thanks. Claire?
Thanks, Phoebes. Yeah, I think I had, for context, circulated the draft to the leadership at the department, and I think everyone provided really helpful feedback that this document is in great shape and has a lot of thought has been put into crafting it. So definitely in support of moving it forward to a further round of public input. I know we provided some comments that were kind of more around implementation, but I don't think those are in concern of moving forward at this point. And then in terms of how long to put it out, I, for some reason, had 45 days in my mind if that's what we needed to, but I might be conflating different deadlines, but I'd be curious on that point to hear more from the advisory council members, and also if there's feedback about how much feedback we received from the public through the open survey that is already out collecting feedback, that would be helpful to know as well. But yes, definitely
Thanks,
supportive
Claire.
of moving this forward.
Okay, great. Yeah, appreciate your comments on thinking about implementation support in a kind of supplement the document, and so that has not been a lost thread. There's no legal requirement for this to be up for public comment. That was the guidance for benefit spending reports that require 40-day public comment. So this is us just choosing proactively to provide that space. Okay, Susanna.
Yeah, I'm good with this draft. I'm definitely comfortable where it landed, and I don't I think that the amount of time that we're talking about, or the range of time that we're talking about in terms of putting it out there I would be fine with either end of that range, so I don't really have strong feelings about it. I mean, we're not talking about 4 days, including Saturdays or anything, so I think it's in a pretty good place.
Thank you, Susanna. Sabina and or Jenny.
I likewise support the draft, and I had the same questions about 30 to 45 days. So whatever the group wants to do.
Great. Jenny.
I agree with Sabina. 30 days is pretty standard from a legal side, so I think that that's a reasonable expectation to set. And thanks everyone for the work.
Thanks, Jenny. Elizabeth.
I really appreciate how the EJ team incorporated all the feedback. I think this draft is ready for public input. And yeah, I think 30 days subject to any advice from the advisory council.
Awesome. Carla?
Hello. Yes, I echo what's been said up until this point. I think the document is in really good shape to open it up for public input. I am interested in hearing what the advisory council has to say with regards to how much time would be appropriate for them to be able to do outreach to their communities to gather meaningful feedback from the communities that they represent. And then under that advisement, I would then, on this other round of the circle process, would voice my opinion and recommendation. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Carla. Great. So, Nuvik.
Oh, yes. I like the way the principal were summarized. Actually doing great. Congratulations for that. And I am okay with 30 days campaign. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Nuvik. And then Dave Vander Isaac.
Hi, thank you. I think I personally think it looks really good and is well documented and researched. I do want to, I think, reflect what a couple folks have said, in particular Carla, just about wanting to really hear from the advisory council members and just be mindful of, in terms of how we solicit kind of review or approval based on the techniques that are ironically, within this material, and just not make it a kind of a typical bureaucracy, like post it on the website, leave it there for 30 days and then call it good. I mean, I don't, and I'm not suggesting that that's what anybody's thinking, but like this is an opportunity for us to kind of practice what we're preaching a little bit, or what we're trying to do better at moving forward in kind of a ironic sort of way. So anyways, just want to mention that. And I know that's not easy as someone who has participated and operated in the kind of public realm for many years and done public participation. And as we've delved over the past year or two into doing it better and differently and really digging into it, I know it's not easy. So I don't just say, you know, wave the magic wand and have it happen. I know it comes with a lot of work.
Really appreciate that, Dave. Yeah. So with that, I'm sorry, I should have done this order differently. Clearly, advisory council folks, hear your folks. I think what I'm hearing is a consensus from the interagency committee to default to what you all think is the right sort of amount of times. So, thank you all. And yeah, let's go. I'm kind of balancing time here. Our goal is public comment at 12:15, but I think we're going to keep rolling and we'll be in good shape. So yeah, same question for the advisory council members. You know, how are you feeling about this document being ready to post for public comment? And how long do you think we should do so? Soraya, I got you at the top of the list.
Yeah, so I actually like the content. The only thing I don't like is the picture at the top. That would be my only change, is the title page picture. And then I would maybe go closer. The only thing that I think what Peter just said, or if it was somebody else, I apologize. I think that folks are going to have more comments on this document once it's actually starting to be implemented, I feel like, as opposed to before. And that's when they might say like, oh, here's what I think should be different about it. So with that, I would just encourage us to be open to changing it down the road as opposed to just over the next 30 or 60 days. That's all. I'm complete. Thanks.
Thanks, Soraya. Appreciate that. I think that is something we can circle back when we hit final consensus phase of, do we also want to sort of internally agree to a process for revisiting things that we're creating together and having them be living documents like that. So heard and appreciated. Brittany.
Yeah, I would say also like 45 to 60 days. And I would ask like what, and if there are any, what supports will be in place for communities to be able to learn how, like supporting them through the public commenting process, as well as if there's, I mean, obviously, I think that, you know, us as the advisory council members, and when we're reaching out to our communities, what supports are going to be in place for that. And I think that that can also may or may not shift the timeline need, but I do think a commenting period of 45 to 60 days is going to be important, especially as we're considering like various outreach models and supports. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Gail?
I have no concerns. I would like to see also, I'd like to echo what Brittany said as far as the attempt for public participation. And I think 45 to 60 days makes the most sense and would be sufficient.
Great. Thank you, Gail. Reverend Brownridge?
I'm sorry, I put my comments in the chat. I think, again, really impressed with how much work people have done in a short time. And 30 days seems very standard and appropriate. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, sorry, you complete?
No, that's it. I didn't know if there was something else you wanted me to add.
Nope, that's it. That's great. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Keep it simple enough. Mariana, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I'm also feeling great and appreciate all the work that has been put into this draft. I'm very proud to be part of this team and in total agreement that we should begin walking the walk and starting to implement this as we go, and starting to send it to all our networks, and just with one email each of us, imagine the amount of people that we can reach. So yes, and in terms of the time, 45 days seems like a middle term between 30 and 60, and seems plenty of opportunity, plenty of time for people to give feedback and provide that opportunity of support and presentations and so on.
Great. Thank you. And then Jennifer.
Thank you. I think it's in a really good place. I do have a list of like 10 maybe grammatical, just sort of spelling things that I'll go over with the EJ team at another time. But I think it's going to be really helpful. I do wonder about whether this document should, or maybe this is down the line, but if it should kind of point out, like I'm wondering what's the standard for what constitutes a topic to engage with communities, as in, yes, we have the normal opportunities for public participation, but beyond that, when an agency puts out a new contract, when there's vital information that needs to get out to the community, and then of course rulemaking and that type of decision making. So I'm sort of wondering if this guidance should touch on that, like being expansive in terms of what it is you're reaching out to communities about. And then I'm also thinking, as I read through this, it's one thing to create an overarching community engagement plan, and then it's another thing to really do a project plan, what they refer to as a PIP, public involvement plan. I guess like per project, you're kind of supposed to write a plan specifically about that project. So I don't know if that guidance needs to be in here or not. But it's just something that comes up for me. I also want to uplift, when I read through this thoroughly, principle 11 and 12, I put like a big plus marks next to. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. And then also on page 23, the first recommendation is really important. It talks about when developing your community engagement plan, create systems to consistently demonstrate how community feedback has informed agency actions or decision making. That's just something that doesn't really happen, like in terms of, I guess you could say it happens in a responsiveness summary after rulemaking, but that seems like something that just needs to permeate. Same with 11 and 12. It's something that has to permeate like all levels of agencies. So it's not just something to include in a plan, but also staff training and stuff like that.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. Well, that's everyone's input from the Interagency Committee and Advisory Council. I'm hearing that there's kind of a general sense that we could move this to this phase with some updating the photo and the grammar things. I hear some other ideas that could be incorporated probably concurrently to this being open. So yeah, I'd love to hear from the public now. This is our second public comment period. You're welcome to chime in on the topic that we're currently on, or anything else that's on your mind. So if there's anyone here from the public who would like to speak, please go ahead and raise your hand and or drop in the chat. Hi, Haley. Go ahead.
Hi guys, my name's Haley, they, them pronouns, Vermont and New Hampshire State Director with an environmental health and justice org called Slingshot. So both public, but also compensated in some ways to be here. So just acknowledging that. I was excited to see all 38 pages of this. Oh my gosh, so much work clearly went into getting these recommendations. And I'm just curious, as an organizer, what would a win look like in this process of getting public comment on these engagement principles? Like, how many folks are we hoping from the public are commenting? Who are the priorities? I'm assuming you all have done some thinking about that already. And what methods of outreach beyond the government website would be a good way of guaranteeing that engagement, whether that's WhatsApp or Facebook or probably not Instagram, I don't know, or even if that is like printing it out on paper, taking it to community centers, mobile home parks. Would just love to do some more thinking around that plan and absolutely offer myself in that particular arena. And Luna, do not eat that. No, 1 second. That's all. That's all.
Thank you, Haley. Appreciate that. We're going to do a little brainstorm at the end here collectively to just jumpstart how we want to kind of think about methods to collecting input. I realize we've just kind of talked generally about time, but time will influence methods. So, and thank you for your offer to support. I invite anyone who wants to reflect on that, but first just see if there's anyone else from the public who would like to speak at this point. Okay. As usual, you know, if something hits your mind in 30 seconds from now, I'm not going to close the door. But we can also sort of continue. So I would like to, oh, I see what's happening here. I've been sharing my screen this whole time of this random half a welcome page because I popped out. I'm so sorry, everybody. Geez. All right. I'm just gonna stop presenting for a minute. That is such a struggle. Yeah, Carla, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to offer a reflection based on Haley's comment, Carla, Agency of Natural Resources. And in terms of success, for me, success would look in this public input process, public comment period. The extent to which we can identify what success is for each of the advisory council members and the extent to which we can support that outreach and engagement, I think is going to be, for me, something to look for in terms of facilitating this public input process. So knowing what the goals and objectives are for each of the advisory council members, and to the extent that it's possible for us to support that, then doing so. So it's not a personal or Agency of Natural Resources. There's no success barometer other than that that's identified by advisory council members themselves.
Okay, I am going to drop in the chat, maybe, kind of a revised proposal for consensus here. Oops, there. Okay, so this is the same proposal we started our circle process with, updated to say that it'll be posted online after removing the existing header photo and addressing grammatical edits. And then I put for a minimum of 45 days. I think that was what I heard as sort of the minimum from the advisory council. And that will give us some time and space to talk through methods and approaches. And if we find that actually, you know what, we need it to be a little bit longer than that, then so be it. Gives us a little flexibility. So would love to, I see a hand up. Let me make sure I'm not missing that. Anybody want to, Nuvik, do you want to jump in?
Yes. Actually, I'm just curious to know ahead of time, since we want to collect feedback from the public, and how we are going to share the information with our different agencies. Do we intend to do something like a survey, or we be just sharing the link to our different agency to get the feedback on that?
Yeah, if I could stretch time and we could all brainstorm collectively for the next amount of time, I would love for us to kind of nail that down. I think we kind of knew this agenda would not leave a ton of time for that, but I did just drop in the chat sort of like the final thing I was hoping we could sort of collectively do if we're in consensus that we're ready to move to this phase, is just to really start to put together sort of suggestions and approaches we want to collect input from stakeholders. I'm just going to name right now, my intention is not to like turn around tomorrow and post this online and start the clock. I think the next step, once we kind of agree to this general next step that we're headed toward, is to share what we can capacity-wise offer through our team, and then kind of match that up to what the advisory council and interagency committee members' abilities are or capacities are to get the word out and connect. So I just want to make that point of clarification. This, if we say minimum of 40 days, I don't see 45 days starting tomorrow. I see 45 days kind of starting once we have a sense of our methods and approach, and can follow up on that. So my hope is, we're going to wind down at 12:30 today, is that we could formally consent to the proposal that I copied above here, consenting to draft 3 of the core principles of community engagement being posted online for final stakeholder feedback after removing the existing header, photo, and addressing grammatical edits for a minimum of 45 days. After this feedback period, input will be meaningfully integrated into a final draft for the advisory council and interagency committee to adopt via consensus and share with covered agencies to begin their planning processes. So at this point, are there any blocking or standing aside concerns to consenting to this proposal as written? Okay, then can we just show verbally or with your thumbs up button or like waving just some sign of a proactive consent to this? Dave, yeah. Is that your thumbs up? Great. Okay.
Wrong button, sorry.
Awesome. Okay, fantastic. Thank you everyone for helping us get to this point. Your input and feedback has been really amazing. I just want to again give a tremendous amount of credit to Alex Lintner, who really carried this document from day one. And so all the positive feedback folks are hearing about feeling heard and things integrated and his thoughtfulness, like Alex was so much the force behind that. So I just really want to honor that this is a huge part of what she brought to the table, and I will miss her dearly because her work is really, really excellent. All right, so that leaves us with 5 minutes to maybe begin, and I was going to offer just like even in the chat and invite members from the public to do the same. If you want to just drop in thoughts that pop to mind on the brainstorm question, just like Rachel just did, what suggestions or general considerations you might want to offer at this stage for collecting input from stakeholders, in particular those from environmental justice focused communities and agency staff who are going to ultimately have to make these principles be put into plans, right? So I would invite folks to just sort of jump in on the chat, put in any thoughts that are there, thumbs up or heart things that you like from other people. And if anybody really wants to, and if anyone wants to hop off mic too and share some thoughts while people are doing this in the chat, I welcome that as well, just to kind of wind us down here for a couple minutes. So like I mentioned, next step is going to be, a survey follow-up around just some next steps and touching base on this. I think I'm curious, if we want to, I think there's going to be just some conversations about what we want to prioritize in our next few meetings. And I'm just curious if folks feel like there's a need to, if we can basically come up with this plan. Trying to get my thought clear. My question is, do we feel like we can put together some sort of plan for this phase of public input without another meeting, like just doing that over email and sharing documents or ideas? Or is there kind of a desire to have like one more meeting where we sort of collectively weigh in and put that together? Just curious if folks have thoughts on that. You can jump in the chat with your thoughts, or does anybody feel strongly we should meet again? to get this plan in motion. Okay, that's helpful. Great. Thank you, Nuvik. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you all so much. We have just 3 minutes left. I'm gonna look at my notes here to make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, just a reminder that we have another meeting scheduled for October 23rd from 1 to 4 p.m. Hopefully the teams meet. Try and get the word out about that. I will circle back with a doodle poll for looking at November and December dates. So we can get those on the calendar. And I guess I just want to say again, like a huge voice of gratitude for the patience that y'all have shown as we've been sort of just contending with stuff on our team and personal challenges and capacity challenges. And just being very kind with our just humanness. Thank you. It means a lot. And really appreciate all of your contributions to all this work. Yeah. Any last closing thoughts to bring us home? The floor is open. I've said all that I feel like I need to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Phoebes. Just a quick question. Do we have another meeting planned for just the council?
We don't at this point. Yeah, and that is a big question of mine, is if that would be a supportive. In my mind, I've imagined at least one more breakout meeting of the two groups this before the end of the year made sense. I'll include preferences for that in the follow-up survey I mentioned. Okay. And just, as always,
thank you.
Email me. Yeah, thank you. I love all these chat thoughts coming in. I can't wait to go back and read all the chat comments. Thank you. This is excellent. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a really excellent rest of their week. Oh my gosh, it's Monday. Cool. So like a great way to me to kick off a Monday. So thank you all for making that true. And yeah, you'll be hearing from us as usual. Oh, and a reminder that the EJ coordinator position is reopened and posted online. So please do consider sharing with your networks or folks who might be interested in that. All right. Thanks all. Be really well. Thank you again to the DEC team, Rebecca, Emily, for presenting. Appreciate that as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Hola, Mariana. Bye.
I guess, yeah, I got kicked off and then.
Oh.
Sí, no sé qué pasó. Se me desconectó pero ya terminó la reunión, ¿verdad?
Sí, ya terminó. Quedamos. La última pregunta, básicamente, el Advisory Council dijo que 45, 60 días y entonces vamos de 30 a 60 fue lo que se dijo y entonces 45 es como el punto medio, que creo que fue lo que tú dijiste, Mariana.
Sí, yo estaba hasta ahí,
Sí.
hasta
Sí.
lo último que
Okay.
Phipps estaba pidiendo de aprobar la propuesta y ahí se me desconectó. Entonces la aprobaron.
Sí, pues
¿se aprobó?
sí.
Ok,
sí.
perfecto.
Y entonces lo que vamos a hacer es que vamos a enviar una encuesta para ver cuáles son los próximos pasos. Pero entonces una evaluación acerca de cuáles son las necesidades de los miembros del Advisory Council y cuáles son las metas, y entonces ver qué es posible dentro de los límites de la ley y el budget y todo eso.
Perfecto, buenísimo.
Y entonces eso va a preceder el comienzo del Public Input Period.
Ok. Y vamos a hacer como un concerted effort para outreach, para mandar a todas nuestras redes y demás.
Sí.
Okay, cool.
Eso es lo que vamos a dialogar, eso es lo que se va a dialogar y lo vamos a hacer todo por email.
Ok, sounds good.
Ver cuáles son las metas, sí, eso, básicamente.
Bueno, gracias, Carlita.
Gracias, Mariana.
Un beso, bye, Hailey.
Gracias, Hailey.
Nos vemos, bye. Que estén bien.
Adiós.
Bye.
Bye, cuídense.
Cuídense, bye.